Hello, I'm Ranger Rob, and welcome to the Ranger Rob Country Living Podcast.
All right. Y'all ready for some freedom loving, country living, self-reliant Americans in action? Rob and Sherry know just what you're looking for. They got cooking, building, installation, and so much more. He'll be coming down the mountain, won't he? This fella ain't no phony. You can know what he knows, one video at a time. Ranger Rob, country living. Ranger Rob, country living.
Hello, everyone. This is Ranger Rob, and welcome to the Ranger Rob Country Living Podcast. This podcast today is an interview that I just did with Bakyard Politics, ran by John Smith. It's a great show. He does a show about every 2 or 3 shows a week, and he's out of Arizona. And he interviewed me just the other day, and we thought we'd turn this into a podcast. So enjoy, everyone.
All right, welcome to a special Wednesday night edition of Bakyard Politics. I am your never boastful, always humble, unsophisticated host, John Smith. Bakyard Politics is live every Monday and Wednesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Our audio podcast can be heard on saywhatyouyouwill.radio.com and just about anywhere you can hear podcasts. Also, our sponsors and merchandise can be found at saywhatyouyouwill.radio.com as well. Now, before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to Dave the Trucker. Keep safe, my friend. As I mentioned tonight, we have a special guest. He is a full-time homesteader and prepper. He teaches beginners who are interested in learning how to homestead on his YouTube channel. He's becoming an expert on hydroponics. He's a very, very interesting guy. His name is Ranger Rob, and his channel is Ranger Rob Country Living. So let me bring him on. All right. Ranger
John.
Rob, how you doing, buddy?
Great. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. I'm glad we were able to get you on tonight. I know, we haven't been able to catch up lately, but I've been watching your channels, and I thought, you know what? I need to take a break from politics like everybody and get you on the show so we can talk about what it takes to get introduced to prepping and homesteading and that type of stuff. So we got a lot to talk about.
Definitely. It's in fact, your show, I always joke is like, once I started watching your show, I started prepping. But
yeah, right.
Actually, a lot of the facts and a lot of things that you do on your show gives us inspiration of like what, instead of just moaning and ranting and complaining, our show is, this is what you can do. This is how you can feel better. This is how you can be proactive. So that's we're right. Actually on the same team.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. You're taking, let's face it, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, as they say. And so you're taking all of that and you're putting it into action, and you've created a really cool area. I mean, how big is your land area where you're at up in Oregon?
We have just a little over 5 acres.
Okay, so 5 acres. And how much of it would you say you're utilizing for your homestead?
Actually, we actually only utilize about 2.5 acres.
Okay.
And the way this property, we bought this from Sherry's folks, and she was in the flowers. So they built this. If you watch our videos, you'll see that we have a deer fence around our property, but it's only around 2.5 acres of it. So we have an outer parameter too. Okay. And so anyway, so we kind of like have this oasis in the desert. We're in a high desert area, and it was originally designed for flowers and all those pretty things. And we still do the flowers. That's and we still take care of Sherry's mom. So when she comes over, we still kind of keep up the flower beds for her, and she loves it. And
that's awesome.
But we took it quite a bit farther. And for those that watch our videos, you'll see that we produce a lot of food here, and we also introduced hydroponics, and this has been an amazing year for producing stuff. So it's been very exciting.
Excellent. Well, I do want to welcome Mickey Kentucky to the room. The Joker as well. Christina was here briefly. I think she's off to bed though. She's a East Coaster person. So Risen's here. How you doing, Risen? No, we're just getting started, my friend. We're just getting started. So listen, anybody watching this show is going to be about homesteading and prepping, and Ranger Rob is becoming an expert in both. So if you have any questions about either topic, homesteading or prepping, he is the guy to ask. So you're welcome to take phone calls, you're welcome to make a phone call to call in. I'm taking calls with your questions. That's 602-475-2000, or you can shoot your questions into the instant chat. Either way, we'd be happy to address your questions. So, all right, let's see. Let's kind of get started with livestock.
With what? With what again?
Livestock.
Oh, livestock.
Yeah.
Oh, those things. Actually, we actually have avoided like livestock. Like we don't have cows and we don't have any sheep or anything like that. We could. We can't. In our area, we do have an ordinance where we can't have cattle. But I'm surrounded by cattle, so there's cooperatives all over here. So I've actually bought, bought meat from cattle farmers around here,
nice.
and I'd rather let them take care of that part, and I just write them a check. But we do, we do the chickens, and we, get our own eggs, and we have a return system where nothing goes to waste. So one of the main things we're also trying to do on our property was everything, nothing goes to waste. Like if we have extra food, extra weeding, things like that, it can either go to compost or it can go to our chickens. And then all the eggs that we get from our chickens, we have 10 Rhode Islands, which means we get 8 to 10 eggs every day. Not one of those eggs gets wasted at all. And so think about that, 70 eggs a week. What would you do with 70 eggs a week?
Omelets, buddy, omelets.
Yeah, you can only eat so many omelets. So that's where we kind of learned how to do more preserving. And so we actually preserve 48 eggs a week. And but
so tell us about that, Rob. So how do you go about preserving eggs? Because I don't think people really think about that.
It's actually quite amazing. There's 3 techniques you could use. One is you take, let's say you take 6 eggs, scramble them up. And let's say in the morning, that's you and your wife would, if you made scrambled eggs, maybe 5 or 6 eggs would do it, right? So go ahead and scramble up 6 eggs, and you can put them in like little Ziploc bags, and then lay them flat so they're flat, and then put them in your freezer, and they'll freeze just like that. And you want to do it sideways because then you have more room in your freezer in the future. So smart. Say in the morning, Saturday morning, you wake up, go to the freezer, grab one of those, throw it in some warm water. It dissolves quickly, and you just throw it in a pan, and it's just like day one. But that's one technique. The next technique is one that I've never done, but it's kind of 100 years ago kind of thing where they use lime, and it's the same kind of lime they use like for concrete and stuff like that. Anyway,
that doesn't sound safe, Rob.
They did it for 100 years. Anyway, I've seen the technique. Now it's important that if you do that, you use eggs that haven't been washed. So we actually have developed a special kind of chicken house to try to keep our eggs clean so the chickens don't mess on them and stuff. And so, because if you wash them, you take off a coating that a chicken actually puts on it. So if you'd have that kind of egg that has the normal natural coating on it and put it in the lime solution, which is you can keep eggs up to almost a year. And they're actually, cooked just like normal eggs. You just, and you put them in raw. You don't have to cook them or anything. So that's another technique. And the third technique we use, which is our preferred way, is we use a freeze dryer. So we take 48 eggs and scramble them, put them in our freeze dryer, which we have 4 sheets in there to fill that up, and we freeze dry them to powder. And then we put them in Mylar bags and seal them with an oxygen reducer or whatever they call those things. And and they're good for 25 years. And the day that you use them, it will taste like the day that you first put them in. They're that good. It's amazing. And so one of the big things we're kind of discovering this year, since we're producing so much food, is if you are getting into homesteading, or if you just have a place outside the city and you can grow a whole bunch of stuff and you get too much food, you'll kind of be forced into preserving. And if you want to learn how to prep a little bit, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You're getting a lot of food and you don't want to waste food. So you preserve food. So you're automatically prepping. And so that's kind of what we found out this year is like, we got tons of tomatoes and tons of all kinds of. Sherry's in the other room, actually pickling cucumbers right now. And, so we got so much food.
Speaking of that, Risen Ability says that, he has a friend who pickles eggs.
Oh yeah. I tried it once, but I failed. I got to get a good recipe. I tried pickled eggs, and Sherry and I would get all excited. We actually pulled them out, and it's like, these taste terrible.
Oh so, man, yeah, you don't want that.
Apparently I messed up, so I got to try that again. But so yeah, that's what we do on our channel. Is as we're discovering things, we're passing it on to other people because we're kind of semi-new homesteaders. So
right.
We assume a lot of people are interested in kind of doing this, and you don't have to have 5 acres. And so what we're trying to show people is we're learning as we're going here. It's like, we didn't have any idea how to do half the stuff we're doing this year until we did our research on YouTube and books and things like that. And so we're learning just like they are. The difference is we're actually doing it. So that's what we kind of take pride in our channel is we're not a channel where we're kind of trying to belittle you. We're trying to encourage you that, hey, we're going to make mistakes, and we show you our mistakes, and we make some real doozies. But we just want to invite everybody in to like, try this. It's not that hard. And I'm 60 years old, and this old 60-year-old can do it. And you guys, anybody younger, this will be a piece of cake. And we understand everybody's in the rat race and all that stuff too, and they have kids. But there really is a way to balance the two where you could actually do homesteading just outside of the city. Or if you just have a little lot, like I used to live by you in Mesa, Arizona, and had a regular lot. And we grew tons of food down in Arizona. And we just had to put a lot of above ground gardens, and we produced a lot of food.
You got to learn how to deal with the heat, right?
Just
depending on the area that you're in, you just have to do a little bit more research to figure out, like if you live in an extreme climate like we do here in Arizona, you just have to know what to plant, when to plant it, what needs to be shady, what can take full sun. You just have to do a little bit of exercise. In fact, or not exercise, but homework, And I actually learned that there are different types of chickens out there depending on what type of climate you're going to be in too. Like the Rhode Island Red can handle a bit of a cooler climate. Whereas in Arizona, maybe that's not the specific chicken you want to have, but you just got to do some research. I want to get to this comment by Risen Ability. He said, those pickled eggs smell horrible, but taste delicious.
Yep.
He does them in a spicy brine. That sounds amazing. I would try
like sauerkraut.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you do the chickens. Let's see. Mickey says, I need some raised garden boxes. I can't do all the bending anymore. Yeah. And
I totally agree.
Those are things you learn, right? You learn that type of stuff over a period of time.
And that's another thing we want to push with everybody is know your limitations. If you have health issues or you're getting older, you got to realize you're not as young as you used to be or things like that. It's really important to really understand your limitations. So making above ground gardens is very smart. And if you can sit on the edge of them too and stuff like that, it's really a benefit to, basically it's hard to stoop. And yet I still do a lot of that, but it's a lot harder to get up. A lot harder.
Hey, if you're just tuning in, this is Ranger Rob from Ranger Rob's Country Living. Check out his channel. In fact, I posted it in the instant chat.
Thank you.
On both both YouTube channels that I'm broadcasting to, as well as my Facebook page as well, check him out. RangerRob Country Living. He does short, like 15 minute videos, and he does them on a regular basis.
Daily.
And it's all daily. Yeah. And it's all about homesteading and prepping. And there's so much you can learn from your channel, Rob. I love it. I watch it all the time. So
I appreciate that. Yeah,
absolutely. It's fascinating. And I live in Mesa. You're familiar with Mesa.
Yep, exactly.
And so I have a small backyard, like most of these homes now that are in HOA communities. The backyards are tiny, and half of it's taken up with a swimming pool. The other half, though, is a decent size, and I need to just really start to do some learning about how I can start growing tomatoes and start growing other things. I can't have chickens in the neighborhood. They frown on that, especially the roosters. But as far as learning hydroponics and stuff. So that's what I want to talk to you about next, because you're becoming somewhat of an expert in the hydroponics field. I watch your videos, and you got some elaborate setups, man. It's awesome. How did you get into hydroponics? And is it something that, is difficult to learn?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I might get a little winded on this, so I apologize. No. So the dilemma is, and I would have the same dilemma if I was in Arizona. So I got up here, and we're in what's called high desert area. And so our soil is really sandy. It's a lot like this, the dirt down in Arizona. And so we came in here with the idea we're going to make garden beds. So I actually started the process, and I had a truck come in with 10 yards of compost to blend with our dirt. And, I was dropping 500, for a truckload, another 500 for something else. And I finally was like, this is ridiculous, and so I got on YouTube, and I started catching these people. What I first saw was a guy doing a thing called Dutch buckets. And he was growing tomatoes, and he was like growing not just tomatoes, but he was growing tomatoes. And it's like, and I was watching how he's doing it, and I'm going, that's amazing. And so then I found out there's all kinds of other techniques, and we actually use 4 techniques out of 5 main ones. There's one called a cranky system, which is something people can do in their apartments, where you can just get a storage box, put water in it with nutrients, and put holes in the top, and put some lettuce on the top, and then the water will drop automatically, and you want it to. And by the time that water's gone, you've got a full head of lettuce. And you can do that in your living room. And so so I want to say everything that I tell you about is something people can do in an apartment, in a townhouse, in a condo, in a small lot like yours and mine. And mine was about the same size as yours when I lived down there. And by the way, you may not realize it in Arizona, but you've got 2 seasons for growing. And it's amazing. You've got winter and spring. And there is a couple of things you can grow through that really hot weather, but Arizona is very neat because you can grow almost all year long, and wow. You just got to know when to make that switch. Like, when are you going into your winter months, and you can do things like broccoli and things like that. And then when spring comes, you start doing things like your tomatoes and stuff like that. And then when summer comes, you got that really hot weather. Well, that's when you do some of your squashes and stuff like that. But so you're actually in a really good place to grow stuff. You just got to understand your seasons. But down here, up here, I was realizing, it's like, boy, if I just had a little greenhouse, maybe I could try some of this Dutch bucket thing. So Sherry and I get this brilliant idea to build our own greenhouse, which we did. And you can see in the videos how we built it. It's nothing really glamorous or anything, but it was a good size, 14 by 21. And we did Dutch buckets. And so we got Dutch buckets in there. And that was the first thing we started with. And we wanted to do tomatoes just like this one guy we saw on the YouTube. And we learned, how to do it, how to do how to build the buckets, how to build a tank, how to do the plumbing. And then we had to learn how to do the nutrients that we put into that, which really isn't hard at all. And so we started, and then we had to learn, we don't use dirt anymore. We do have some normal gardens, but all of our stuff uses either perlite, vermiculite, and for gardeners, they know what I'm talking about, or coconut coir. Those are the three main things we use. And so tomatoes growing, we use perlite because perlite doesn't hold water. So when you see our buckets, when you go to our video, you'll see that we have little feeders that go in there where the tomatoes are, and the water goes right through it, and it catches it. And then at the bottom of a Dutch bucket, there's about 2 inches of water that stays in there. So the tomatoes actually want some nutrients when we're not feeding them. They have a reservoir down at the bottom of the bucket. So we run, and you want to save water, especially in Arizona, we only run the water on our tomatoes 4 times in 24 hours for only 15 minutes. And so for 15 minutes, the pump comes on, it gives nutrients to all of our tomatoes, and then it shuts off, and all the water returns back to the tank, and it's recyclable water. Now, you do still have to refill that tank because the tomatoes we have are gigantic now. They're reaching the roof, so they drink a lot of water. So, but I have the same tomatoes that I planted at the same time outside in conventional gardens. They're 1/3 the size of the ones in the greenhouse in the Dutch buckets. It's totally amazing. Producing food is insane. And that's just one technique. And so there's another one in our thing called, I told you I'd be winded, and I apologize. If you need to stop me, stop me.
No, this is all fascinating.
We do also what's called a floating rafts. So we have 2 big tanks in the middle of our greenhouse. And in the middle, you'll see a floating styrofoam with holes in it. And so it's about 6 inches deep, and we fill that with water and nutrients. And it's all a balanced mixture. And you just put your plants on that. And we also have aerators like you would see in an aquarium. So it's all about how to get oxygen to your plants. So like the first one I told you, the Dutch buckets, they kind of go dry because of the perlite. Well, during that time, that's when your tomatoes are getting their oxygen. And in a floating raft, the way they get their oxygen is through the aerators, the air that we're putting into the water. And then cranky system is the first one I was telling you that we don't do, is you fill up a tank, put your plants in it, and let the water drop. And the plants will adapt with their, get my fingers up here, about that much of the root at the beginning of the plant will get its oxygen with that spacing. And the rest of it will get its nutrients out of the water as it drops. And you never have to do anything. You just, it's a one-time thing. You fill up the tank, let it drain out. By the time it's drained out, the plant's fully matured. So that's great for apartments to do in your house. And the only thing you'd have to have is a grow lamp. And yeah. So
and you can get those anywhere now, right?
Yeah, just go to Home
No one's
Depot,
going to ask any questions if you're buying a grow lamp now.
That's true. And by the way, a lot of hydroponic people love to grow the marijuana and hemp that way too.
Oh, yeah.
So that was so the floating rafts is my favorite, and we also have what's called the strawberry towers that we have in our yard, and they're hydroponic too, but the water doesn't return. We have a big tank, and it feeds water to the towers for 6 minutes every day once. And it goes through all the towers and waters everything, and then comes down to the bottom. And then we have a big planter at the bottom, and we'll put carrots or radishes or something like that in there. And then the rest of the water just goes into the ground. And it's nutrient water. It's good water. So it's not hurting the environment at all, but that's not a return system. And then the last one is called NFT, which is called nutrient film technique. And if you watch our videos, you'll see these long tubes on our property, in our growing area with holes at the top. And it's like a ever flow river of nutrients going down the pipe. So it goes down the end of the pipe, goes back into the tank. The pump grabs the water again, takes it to the front of the tank, and there's a 3% decline on the pipes, and it just keeps 24 hours. I have nutrients feeding my plants, and so we have 2 of those kind of systems on the property too. So if you want to see like almost every kind of hydroponics available, we're doing it here, and this is our first year. So there's awesome. Been a a lot of things learned, the lessons learned big time, but it's amazing. Your plants will grow faster. You'll use less water, and it's easy to build. You can just go to Home Depot for, pipes and little things. And before you know it, you could have a very, very, vermiculite is used for house as insulation.
Yeah. That's what, Reasonability said.
Huh. That doesn't sound right, because that stuff's designed to hold water. So vermiculite holds water, perlite doesn't, unless I'm not pronouncing it right. But
interesting.
And they're granular, and so some people will do like buckets or Dutch buckets with the mix of the two. So the vermiculite will hold a little bit of water, and the perlite will let it drain. And in fact, a lot of people have seen perlite. If you buy potting soil and you see a little white rocks in there, that's perlite.
Oh, okay.
And the reason that's in potting soil is to help your potting soil drain. So we just use complete perlite.
Risen said he used it back in the day. It was vermiculite asbestos. Oh,
it could be. I don't know that subject very well, so he's probably right. It's a volcanic rock that they heat up to a very high extreme, like 1,000 degrees, and it turns into these pebbles, and it's kind of like popcorn. Anyway, that's how they make it.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting, but it's not very expensive. So you can buy giant bags of that stuff for very little money.
Yeah. It sounds to me like, the whole hydroponics, the whole system is not going to cost you a bunch. Maybe the pumps, maybe the most.
Not even the pumps. For example, I'm using a 100-watt pump. This is my biggest pump. I use different pumps, and you get them off Amazon for $39.
Oh, wow.
They're cheap. And so I run, I have two NFT systems, which is the one that's ever flowing. Both of those have got 100-watt pumps. They do 1,100 gallons per hour, and $39. And
so it's probably almost like a fish tank pump.
Well, it's a little bigger, but it'll be more
powerful
for you, like little ponds in your yard or something. A lot of people use a pump like that.
All right.
And then the aerators are actually something you would use for a very large aquarium or something like that. And we have these aerators that are just pumping into what we call air stones, and air stones are spread out in the floating rafts, and those are really cheap too. They're none of this is costly at all. I think the most expensive thing I was buying 3-inch pipe, and I couldn't get PVC, so I had to go with that ABS, and so it was like $19 for 10 feet, and I have 30-foot NFTs. So that was probably my most costly thing, was the pipe.
There's a store, maybe you've heard of it, in Mesa called the Drip Store. Do you know those guys?
I never went there. I was actually not in the hydroponics at all when I was down in Arizona. It wasn't until I got up here last year and I discovered it. So
cool. Yeah, that's what they're into, and they sell the whole kits.
Oh yeah.
You can tell them what you want, how big you want, and they'll actually build it for you. So Mickey, she says, wow, way too scientific for me. Sounds super fascinating, but don't know if it's something I could do. Now, in reality, it's pretty simple, right?
It's very simple.
It sounds complicated. It sounds more complicated than it is.
So imagine this, Mickey. Go to Home Depot and buy one of those 28 gallons totes, the little black ones with the yellow lids on it. So that's your first major investment. Then you just make sure it's clean, set it down in your living room, and then you fill it up with water. And then you buy what's called, there's different kinds out there, but we use Master Blend. And the formula is super simple. So whatever gallons you're putting in, for example, Master Blend, you put 2 teaspoons per 5 gallons. So 28 gallons, you do the math and stuff like that. So basically you just do that once and get the nutrients in the water. And in the lid, you just drill some holes in the top and then put little cups in there or whatever you want of some lettuce. And you want to start your lettuce kind of off to the side, and then you just put them in those holes and walk away. And you have to have a grow light, and that's it. you're done. And if you do it once, you go, whoa, this is so simple. And that's the most basic kind of hydroponics you could do. And
you can do that outside in your patio, right?
Oh yeah. And you could actually not even use a grow light.
Yeah. Yeah. God gave us a big one, that big yellow dot in the sky there.
Yeah. If your apartment's on a site that doesn't have a really good light, you could maybe, run some light during the afternoon, and they don't need light at night. You can leave your light on the whole time, but you really want to give plants their, the opportunity to know day and nighttime. And so you could really, if you had a grow lamp in the back porch in a apartment, if you're not running at night, who cares? Nobody's going to bother you. And the towers we do too, you can do right off the back of your porch in an apartment, and you could grow 50 plants in one tower. And,
wow.
And you can make towers refill themselves. You put a little tank at the bottom, and all you have to do is make sure the tank doesn't go empty, and you're done. super
amazing.
Easy. And no dirt.
And you grow a variety of stuff, right? I mean, I've seen you've got strawberries that are growing, and they're starting to grow pretty nice, right?
Oh yeah. So
you got zucchinis, you got lettuce, you've got strawberries. What other types of produce are you growing?
We're doing peppers, which I didn't think we'd do that well in peppers, but we're killing it. And we do beans, like your green beans, and our hydroponic green beans in the greenhouse do a lot better than outside, because we're getting extremely hot weather that's not normal for up here, and it really played havoc with my beans outside. And so the plants really did not react well to that, even though they're on hydroponics, extreme. And so we had to make some modifications. And if you watch our channel, you'll see that we put a new shade cloth over the NFT and things like that, because we're just burning plants because it was so hot up here. It's 100 degrees up here today, and that's unusual.
Yeah.
We're usually in the 80s.
Been really warm and pretty dry too, right?
Yeah, and so it's really playing havoc. And by the way, if you're in a place like Arizona, I know that you guys are going to start getting rationing your water. If you're not now, you're going to be.
Well, we have been getting a lot of rain this year.
Good. Well, that's good. So
yeah, in fact, it was storming today in Phoenix. I mean, it's pouring. Yeah,
good.
So that's good
to hear.
Mickey says, can you get melons and corn? Can you grow corn and melons, like watermelons?
Yeah, so
cucumbers?
on our channel, we're actually doing hydroponic corn. Now the corn is in the ground. We did I didn't waste all that money of putting compost in the ground without putting something in the ground. So our corn is in the ground. However, I know that our soil just doesn't have a whole lot of nutrients in it. So I actually, before we planted, we put little drip tubes all along the holes, and we're using what's called fabric weave. So we don't have weeds. We just burn holes in this fabric weave, and then we plant our corn. And so once a week, like today, I ran 70 gallons of nutrients into my corn. And then when other days, I just use regular water. So I actually use hydroponic solution on my corn. And it wasn't really in the plan, but I'm thinking, all I have to have is a garbage can as a tank, and put a pump in there, and then kind of bypass the system and pump that in there, and it's like, and my corn is flourishing, and I'm actually growing what's called candy corn. And I don't know how many people have actually had candy corn, but as a kid, we used to get it up in Washington State before all the warehouses were built in the valley. And we used to love to get candy corn. It's really good corn. So I actually got candy corn seed, and all of my corn, once you go to the videos, we show you guys every day how everything's coming along. And,
yeah, it's tall. Your corn stalks.
They're like 12 feet tall.
They're
and
phenomenal looking.
We're getting silking now, which means we're getting corn. So that's kind of exciting. And by the way, we're new. So, we're sitting there growing corn going, so when does the tassels come? We didn't know about that. So you look it up, and we found out about that. And then pretty soon we're going, okay, we got tassels now. So where's the corn? So pretty soon we get on YouTube. It's like, all right, we study up everything we want to know about corn. And we find out And now we're getting they call it silking. So we're getting our silking now. So we're getting our corn. We're all excited.
And then when it turns a dark brown or black, it's time to pick it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I can tell you that a month ago, I couldn't have told you that. So
I remember that from when I was just
expert.
a little kid. Yeah. That's when you know it's time to harvest the corn, when the silk is black. What about melons, like watermelons or cantaloupes or anything like that?
It can be done, but there's a problem. Melons, just like beans, have extensive root systems and so one of the videos you'll hear me complaining that my NFT systems were leaking. Well, I had to go into the hole, and these beans created these gigantic root systems, and it was literally blocking the water from the constant flow. So I had to go in there and actually take out some of the roots just to let the water pass. And I used 3-inch pipe, and I probably should have used 4, but I think I would still have the same problem. So you got to understand what your plant's going to do. Beans make really big roots. So next year we're not going to do it in NFT. We're going to do it beans again, and like we did in the greenhouse, we're going to use the Dutch buckets, because then you don't have the problem with the water flow. Because oh my god! So melons, getting to the point, melons, pumpkins, things like that have very extensive root systems. So you can do it. Like you could use a cranky system where you just put it in the ground, and then still want to give it room to grow. But you can do hydroponic pumpkins. You can do hydroponic melons, but you have to understand how that plant's going to grow and understand that. And once they get bigger, and they're going to be sucking up water, so you're going to be changing out water in the tank a lot. So you might want to put some kind of automatic feeder into it to keep that tank full.
Especially like a watermelon, because they are so much water.
Well, we have the same problem with the Dutch buckets. When I first started, my tank would last 5 days cycling the water. Now I get these giant tomatoes, and we grow, if anybody's interested, we grow what's called jet stars. And anyway, now that they're full size and we're getting these giant tomatoes, and every day we got tomatoes, they're drinking a tank. They're drinking 38 gallons of water every day.
Wow.
Or nutrients. And I didn't have to. Now I got to change that tank every day.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, and that's in the greenhouse, so I don't have that much evaporation. And so yeah, it was amazing. So you got to understand what your plant's going to do, and that's things we're learning too. What's the plant going to do? Understand the plant, understand its growth, understand its roots, and understand its needs. And sometimes you have to modify your nutrients. Like tomatoes, I had to up the calcium a little bit, so we wouldn't have end rot and things like that, or cracking.
Interesting. What I had learned from growing tomatoes back again when I was a kid, they require, I think, a lot of acid to grow good tomatoes, and you can actually use pine needles. So the pine needles that, if there's any pine trees in your area, you can actually. Yeah, you can get all those dried pine needles off the ground, and you can mix them into the soil. If you're not using hydroponics, if you're just growing a tomato in soil, you can put that into the soil, and that will actually help your tomatoes grow.
Yeah. So what we do is we learn all those things about tomatoes, but we have to deal with it with nutrients.
Right.
Which means, we may have to put a little bit more calcium nitrate into our water. We may have to put a little more salt in our water, things like, or more of the master blend that we use. And so I've found I've had to change my balance a little bit once the tomatoes were starting to produce. And once I switched over to a little bit more calcium nitrate, man, they just went nuts. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just,
now, did you expect?
Oh, go ahead.
Did you expect to have such great? It sounds like your first year has gone extremely well.
It has. It surprised us, and we're also surprised at what a green. If everybody's ever been thinking about getting a greenhouse, I would say do it. I don't care where you live. There's some amazing things you can do with a greenhouse, and you can have a basic greenhouse or environmentally controlled greenhouses, which we're looking into for next year. we're looking at actually putting a new 20 by 60 over in part of our property that will have total environmental control, so we can grow totally through the winter. And so, like, for example, if you watch our show, our tomatoes, if I can hold the environment warm enough for those tomatoes will get 15, 20 feet long, and they'll still produce tomatoes for me if I can get them to live through winter. And so I don't know if I can do it in this particular greenhouse I got, because I don't have enough power out there and stuff for heaters and all that. But the new one that we're looking at will have all the environmental controls to help us keep it, from having any freezing or anything in there. And I could literally produce tomatoes year round, and
That's
off of the same plant. That's what's amazing. We do what's called a tilt and lean system. And so you can have 20, 30 foot tomato plants, and they're still producing tomatoes. It's amazing.
All year round. See, that's the phenomenal stuff. And let me ask you this question, because this is important, and this is why homesteaders homestead and preppers prep and etc. is because at any given time, and we're living in crazy times in the world right now, and I don't want to get too in the political weeds here, but right now they're talking about people that get a certain medication or people that don't get the certain medication. There's some cities that aren't even allowing the unmedicated, if you will, to go and shop into grocery stores or go to restaurants. So now that you've been doing this and you've really been getting into the homesteading, which has really led to even more prepping, like you said before, how often do you go to the grocery store?
Actually, a lot less. The only reason we go to the grocery store is like for some of the condiment kind of things.
Meat, I would assume, unless you go to a butcher.
Yeah, I mean, like we do Costco, and we'll buy large quantities of chicken breasts and things like that. But we also co-op with meat companies and farmers, and so we have a lot of beef in our freezer because we buy by the quarter or by the half. And I can do the same thing with chicken and pork. And so I don't have to rely.
Your chickens that you raise are merely egg.
Yes. We only have hens. We only have Rhode Islands, Rhode Island Reds. And so we don't have the rooster problem or anything. And it wouldn't be a problem here anyway, because we got the space. But those people are worried about having chickens closer to the city. Just get hens. You're good to go. And you can order your chickens online and ask for just hens. So I ordered just 10 hens, and that's exactly what I got. And they live through the shipping, no problem. They come within, they only ship, I think it only takes them a day and a half to get to your house, and the post office will call you and you go and pick up your little chickens. Anyway, it's really cute. Anyway, and you just brood them for a little bit and make sure you have a little hutch. And if you take care of your chicken hutch right, your neighbors will never know you have chickens. So, and if you only need like 2 or 3 chickens, if you got laying, that's 2 or 3 eggs a day. And I don't think a lot of people eat 2 or 3 eggs a day. So, you'd get plenty of chickens lots of eggs that way. So,
yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And so you're bringing up politics, and we do follow it just as much as you do. You just get more detailed about it, but it's what you're reporting is what we're telling people. Here's what you should be doing about the information we're hearing. We know there's shortages coming. We know there's inflation coming. We know that we may have shortages on certain kind of meats. We know we're going to have problems if we, for those that didn't get the thing in the arm, you may be limited to places you can go and stuff like that. And the fact is you don't need it. I can get all the meat I want from my local farmers, and so can you. And anything kind of condiments I want, I can get on Amazon. I can get in all kinds of places, and I can probably get better quality than when I'm buying it at Safeway. And
now,
so,
let me ask you, when it comes to the feeding the chickens themselves, you're looking at like cracked corn, right? maybe some oyster shells for their gizzards, that type of stuff. And maybe the little pebbles and stuff, but really chicken feed and taking care of chickens is pretty simple too, right?
Very. And if you're growing food, you're going to have, when you're cleaning your garden, or you're going to have something that grew funny and you just don't want to use it for cooking with stuff. For example, we had a green tomato fall off one of our vines. Well, we could cook green tomatoes, no problem, but our chickens love green tomatoes, so we'll just give one of them, and they have a heyday with them. And we may get a zucchini that didn't quite develop right or didn't bloom right, and instead of throwing it away and stuff, the chickens love that stuff. And so what we're finding is we don't use cracked corn or anything like that. We actually use what's called layer hen crumbles. And we do give them grit or rocks that they eat for their gizzards. But now that we have so much food growing and so much, like I have way too much lettuce, sometimes I'll take a whole head of lettuce and give it to the chickens. And the chickens will devour a head of lettuce in less than 15 minutes. So our chickens are eating really well. and what I've noticed is the chicken feed, a reduction in chicken feed, because now we're feeding them from the land too. And so we don't let our chickens free range because we have coyotes and hawks and eagles here. But we do give them a very good balanced diet. Every once in a while we'll find some little critters like a hornworm or something like that, and we'll throw that in the pen. The chickens love that stuff. And so they get all kinds of variety in their diets. But you can take almost everything you put in your compost bin, you can give to your chickens. And they love it. And so, yeah, you can really reduce your cost.
Yeah. And if you do need to buy chicken feed, like to start off, or maybe that's all you're doing, maybe if you're not getting into the whole gardening and all that type of stuff, you just want to raise some chickens, you can order anything really from Amazon, I would think, or there's going to be a farming store, a feed store near you somewhere, I would assume. Yeah.
Well, like chickens, there's like several places you just go online and say you want chickens. Baby chickens. There's tons of places that will ship you chickens, and some places they may have a quantity. They may require you to get 25 or something, but there's other places like where we found, which was a really good company. I can't remember the name of them, but I just wanted 10 laying hens, and I wanted to be Rhode Island Reds, and it's like, no problem. They shipped them right away, and I had my little babies there in no time. It was no big deal. They didn't care if you don't have to be a country bumpkin or a redneck to order that stuff. They're very understanding people, and they're enthusiastic seeing new people getting their first chickens and stuff. So you'll be treated well. Don't be shy.
Hey, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to RangerRob from RangerRob Country Living. He is becoming an expert in the homesteading and prepping world, and he's relatively new at it. But he's learned so much this year. He's been extremely successful. Check out his page. It's RangerRob Country Living. You can just search that on YouTube. You're going to find it. And he does daily videos at his property, out at his homestead in Central Oregon. And it's just awesome. It's something that maybe you never thought you'd be into. Maybe it's like, homesteading, prepping. But you watch it, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating what you do, and your videos are quality and extremely informative. So check them out, RangerRob Country Living, and just click that reminder bell so that you can get reminded every time. Yeah, you get reminded every time he does a video. So check that out. But
it's kind of a new thing for us to do a daily video is quite the challenge.
Yeah, I know. Well, you got to do all the editing and.
Oh yeah, and but there's never something not to talk about. There's always something on a homestead. So when you hear the word homestead, you don't have to be in the middle of Montana in a little cabin somewhere. Homesteading means that you're trying to be self-sufficient is really the terminology. So you can do that in, close to the city in the rural areas and stuff like that. And you don't have to buy tons of acreage. You can do a lot on an acre and a half. There's people making big money off of an acre and a half by selling their goods to farmers markets and stuff. But
a friend of mine actually had some property up in the White Mountains. You're familiar with that area, Arizona, the White Mountains.
Yeah.
And he had a couple acres, and then he built a kind of a very large barn. It almost took up almost all the property, but he had free range chickens up there. They were all meat chickens, and it was all organic. And I found out, Rob, this is shocking. This might shock people watching too. It only takes 9 weeks for a chicken to go from little like Easter, the little yellow chick to a full grown eating ready chicken. And so
we're actually looking into that.
And he was turning over hundreds of chickens. And then he was doing his own, he built in that barn, he built his own processing center. And so he was doing all the processing, everything on the chicken. And he was selling that chicken at about, I want to say, almost $14 a pound.
Yeah. And people will do that.
He was making
and people are doing it now. And we actually may do meat chickens next year. And all you get these Cornish meat chickens, and they come in and they're very delicate. They grow really fast. In fact, they grow so fast sometimes that they have a hard time walking. And you'll lose, if you buy 100, you'll probably lose 5% of them just because they're not a normal chicken. And they eat like crazy.
Genetically engineered probably just to grow fast.
And they grow like crazy, and they poop like crazy. So they're just a growing pooping machine, but they grow.
Sounds like my kids.
And in 8 weeks, you got a full-size chicken. And so when you look at the cost and all that, it's like you could, and let's say each chicken weighs, after you dress them out, let's say 4 to 5 pounds. And you have let's say you end up with 90 chickens. And it's like, how much would you have paid for all that? You'd have, in just 8 weeks, you would have 5 times 90 chickens. So you're looking at 450 pounds of meat. In 8 weeks. In 8 weeks, you can't even do that with a cow. You can't do that with a pig.
No, and you're getting almost filet mignon prices for this chicken if they're free range organic chicken.
If you're feeding them yourself and you're keeping them all for your freezer, you could feed your whole family chicken almost twice or 3 times a week, just off of that. And the investment was so little, it'd be amazing, So my indicator, if I'm going to do meat chickens, is I'm watching the economy really close, like how stupid is things going to get. And if there's an indicator that says, okay, chickens is getting impossible to buy, then I'm going to order my own meat chickens, build a little pen really quick and do that, because some of this could get really ridiculous. And that's where your show comes in, is you're giving us the basis of what's going on out there. And my answer is to get off your duff and do something about it, and don't go boo-hoo. If you think there's going to be a food shortage, what can you do about it? Start growing your own food. Start prepping a little bit. And if you don't like the word prepping, self-reliance, being prepared. Let's use those words. And start buy a little bit more at Costco. Maybe get yourself a freeze dryer, or maybe start doing a little bit of the dehydration stuff.
Yeah.
Or
you can get a dehydrator cheap. And you can, and if you can go to a butcher and get yourself, half a cow, if you have the ability to store that, you can dehydrate that and turn that into jerky and stuff real easy and make it home, and it's delicious. It's so much better than if you buy it in the store, and it's not pumped full of chemicals. And
that's one of the reasons why we buy I know we're watching our time here. We buy chest freezers, because if we had a power outage, we do have backup generator systems for our well and everything. You can run your freezers on your generator for a couple hours, get them down to temperature. And if you're not opening the lid a lot and stuff, like, your stuff will stay frozen for a long period of time before you have to put it back on power.
Yeah.
So chest freezers make a lot of sense, because you'll protect your food more as long as you can get it back on power for a couple of hours every day. And
they're almost impossible to find right now, Rob. Chest freezers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. In fact, I was we have one. We've had one for quite some time. We store a lot of stuff in there. But we were at Costco last week, and they had a ton of them in stock. And I'm looking at my wife. She's looking at me. I'm like, should we buy another one, a backup, and have a second one and fill it full of food? Because we're watching the inflation. We're watching the price of beef and chicken go through the roof. And we've almost become like a banana republic where chicken today might be $4.99 a pound. Tomorrow it might be $6.99 a pound. And so you got to buy it now, because I guarantee you a month, 2 months, 6 months from now, chicken's going to be twice as expensive as what you're paying for it now. So buy as much as you can and free. And
it may not be available in the future either. Some of these they're making crazy laws. They're making, they shut down pig plants in California. And it's like, what are they thinking? It's like, oh, it's nicer for the environment. It was like, okay, but now you don't have pork.
Yeah. There's a bacon shortage or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and they're doing it to, and then they have problems with the meat packing plants and stuff. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. And our message is take action, do something about it. What can you do to be prepared in case something does happen? Your power goes out, the food shortages, the inflation, all those different things. What can you do? And don't use the can't thing. No, I can't do this. I can't do this. There's a way to do it. And maybe you have to change your environment, but get a plan and start doing it.
Change your priorities too. Maybe that $7 latte isn't as important as maybe stocking up on some chicken that you can put into a freezer. And if you watch Ranger Rob's channel, you don't have to jump into a 2.5 acre homestead to get started. You don't have to do that. Rob, you didn't start that way, but learn how to start, learn how to store water, learn how to store rice, learn how to store meat, find out what you need to dehydrate meat or freeze dry meat or freeze it, and just start doing the basics. And I would say this, and I'm sure you would agree, it's never too late to start. Just start.
And ask yourself the other thing, what could be the biggest commodity if we really had an emergency? Gold, silver, food, all those sound pretty good. Somebody might trade you some stuff even during hard times for those things right there. You'd be a rich person.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, awesome, man. I really appreciate your time tonight.
I love your show, and I'm so grateful you invited me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise, guys, check out RangerRob Country Living. You can search him on YouTube. You're going to find him. He does daily shows, and it's very informative. Like he said, out on his homestead, there's always something to talk about. There's always something to learn, and he's learning along with you, which is the cool thing. You're not, you don't come out, you're not the expert on everything. You're just learning on a daily basis and teaching us along the way. So check them out. RangerRob Country Living.
That's the point of the show. We're not there to belittle you. We're there to do this together. Yeah.
And make mistakes and learn from mistakes, right?
Oh, definitely. There's lots of them.
All right. Well, thanks again for being here, Rob.
Thank you for having me. It really is a pleasure.
I want to do a follow-up after you get your big greenhouse going, and I want to follow up with you and see what you got planned for next summer. It should be interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right. Well, you take care.
Right. Well, thanks for having me, and we'll keep watching.
All right. Thanks, RangerRob.
All right. Bye.
All right, RangerRob, he's awesome. He's actually the purveyor of the RangerRob pet poopy bags as well. And I have them over there, unfortunately, behind me. But if you have a dog, or even if you just take walks through the park and you're coming across someone who didn't pick up their dog waste, you can get a hold of RangerRob poopy bags. They're awesome. They have extra long handles. They smell like lemon, which is good. They're biodegradable, and they're extra big. So even if you've got the Irish Wolfhound or the Great Dane, it can handle what that dog's going to do, all the way down to the smallest Chihuahua. So check them out on Amazon. RangerRob Pet Poopy Bags. Guys, I'm going to take off. I appreciate everybody for being here. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Thank you very much for watching our video. Please take the time to like, subscribe, and share our videos all over the whole wide world. Thanks.